On January 30th, 2026, the world's most powerful digital asset manager officially executed a death warrant for Cardano's spot in the institutional top 5. Now, it's got to be said, Wall Street has been saying that this was a routine math update based on market cap, except I don't believe it was. As Grayscale was dumping ADA, the CME was secretly preparing its own green light for the asset. By the end of today's investigation, you'll see the specific liquidity traps and regulatory handshakes that prove that ADA didn't fail the index. The index was rigged to fail ADA. We've cross-referenced Grayscale's rebalancing data with the latest 2026 on-chain metrics, internal treasury bids, and the upcoming CME futures filing. From the top 10 market cap reclaiming to the 70 million infrastructure war chest, the data tells a story that fund managers want hidden. On January 30th, 2026, the digital walls of the global financial complex tightened. Grayscale, the largest digital asset manager on our planet, officially finalized a rebalancing that did more than just shift numbers. It effectively executed a systematic removal of Cardano from the institutional top 5. While the public was told this was just a routine adjustment based on the market cap weighing, the timing suggests a far more calculated exit. As you can see, Cardano just reclaimed the 10th spot, proving that the community momentum is currently outrunning institutional sentiment. We are going to see Cardano out of the top 10 again, and then back in, I'm sure. The official narrative claims that the CoinDesk Smart Alpha Large Cap Index, which governs Grayscale's fund, requires assets to meet a specific liquidity and capitalization threshold. However, this mathematical decision was hands down just as the Cardano network was hitting record milestones, including a total of 4.84 million unique wallets and a sustained 99.998% uptime. Furthermore, we are left with a paradox. A network that is more stable and widely used than ever before is suddenly deemed unfit for the world's most prominent crypto index. This move didn't happen in a vacuum. As Grayscale was hitting the sell button, internal data shows that Cardano was processing, get this, an average of 2.6 million transactions daily, with smart contract interactions making up over 35% of the total volume. The integrity economy that Cardano proponents have been building, one based on decentralized governance and peer-reviewed security, is now in direct conflict with the liquidity economy favored by Wall Street. While the price was looking for a floor, Cardano's DeFi volume was busy building a skyscraper. Growth of 15.7% shows the network is being used, even if it's not being priced yet. The removal from the index creates a liquidity trap. By stripping ADA of its place in the ETF lineup, Grayscale effectively cuts off the primary pipelines for passive institutional capital, forcing the asset to rely solely on retail and direct whale accumulation. But as we dig a little deeper into the SEC's recent shadow requirements, we find that the math behind the rebalancing might be a cover for a much darker regulatory handshake. The CoinDesk 5 index is the engine under the hood of the Grayscale large cap fund, but in early 2026 it began to look less like an engine and more like a filter. The official volume requirements and liquidity assessments designed to appear objective, but its real-world application has become a gatekeeping mechanism. By prioritizing high liquidity centralized exchange tokens like BNB, the index effectively paralyzes protocols that prioritize long-term decentralized staking over speculative trade volume. While some networks are built around a boardroom, Cardano's built around its users, with over 25% of all wallets actively securing the Cardano network, compared to the heavy supply concentration we see in BNB. While Cardano ADA has maintained a fixed supply cap and transparent issuance model, the index smart alpha criteria has shifted somewhat towards assets that facilitate higher fee generation for exchanges. This shift ignores the fact that Cardano is currently second globally in GitHub developer activity that outpaces almost every other network in the top 10. Furthermore, the methodology isn't measuring the network's value, it's measuring the network's compatibility with the existing brokerage system. By the time the rebalancing was finalized, ADA had processed over 450 million transactions. Get this, with 99.998% uptime, yet the index methodology flagged it for removal while evaluating a token tied to a centralized exchange that had faced years of global regulatory scrutiny. This isn't just a change in portfolio weighting, it is a fundamental rejection of the integrity economy in favor of an exchange economy. They called $974 million of daily volume low liquidity while ignoring the fact that Cardano's volume is driven by holders and builders, not just HFT bots on a centralized exchange. This brings me to the most uncomfortable question yet. Is the index truly a mirror of the market, or is it a tool for directing capital away from the networks that are too decentralized to control? As the Market Clarity Act remains stalled in the Senate, the institutional world is looking for an asset that plays by corporate rules. But as we will see in the next chapter, one massive institution is making the opposite bet. While Grayscale was busy closing the doors on Cardano, the world's largest derivatives marketplace was opening a vault. On January 15, 2026, the CME Group confirmed that ADA futures would commence trading on February 9, 2026. This creates a staggering institutional paradox. One of the world's most conservative financial entities on the earth is green-lighting Cardano for hedge funds and global banks. At the exact same moment, a major fund manager is dumping it. Grayscale may have closed the door on January 30th, but the CME Group blew the roof off by launching ADA futures on February 9th, proving that institutional appetite is shifting, not shrinking. While index funds like Grayscale focus on past liquidity and market cap narratives, derivative markets like the CME focus on future demand and hedging. Hundreds of private funds view CME approval as the primary green light for institutional investment, potentially leading to a massive re-rating of the asset. Furthermore, the exit by Grayscale might not be a sign of ADA's weakness, but rather a sign that Grayscale's specific fund model is no longer the primary vehicle for smart money. So please take a moment and let me know in the comments below why you believe the world's most established derivatives market is betting on Cardano's growth, while a passive fund manager like Grayscale claims that it's no longer a top tier asset. Really interested to get your views and opinions. Let me know in the comments down below. Now, the CME launch includes both standard contracts of 100,000 ADA and micro-size contracts of 10,000 ADA. This allows a broad range of market participants, from retail speculation to global hedge funds, to gain exposure without the friction of holding the actual spot asset. This is the very definition of institutional infrastructure. However, the Grayscale rebalance activity removes this same exposure for its investors. Don't let the short-term sell pressure fool you. The capital leaving the large cap fund is just noise compared to the regulated institutional on-ramp the CME is about to provide. This split in the financial world raises some dangerous questions. If the CME sees the utility in Cardano's 4.8 million wallets and its rank as second most active developer community on GitHub, what is it Grayscale sees that, they don't, the CME that is? Or more importantly, what are they being told about Cardano? As we move into the next chapter, we'll look at the shadow requirements of the SEC that might have forced Grayscale's hand. Now, 70% of people aren't subscribed to our channel and watching. Why not subscribe? It's absolutely free to do so. Hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. The removal of Cardano from Grayscale's lineup may not have been a choice, but a mandate delivered in the shadows of regulatory compliance. While the Genius Act provided a glimmer of hope for the industry, the Market Clarity Act remains paralysed in the Senate, leaving a vacuum where clear rules should be. In this environment, the SEC has reportedly moved away from public litigation and towards shadow requirements, unwritten rules that force fund managers to purge assets that don't fit a specific centralized surveillance model. We have the law for stablecoins, but we're still missing the law for everything else. This legislative gap is the only thing standing between Cardano's current volume and the wall of institutional capital waiting for the Market Clarity Act. Grayscale's digital large cap fund GDLC has been battling for the approval of options trading, a move that would unlock billions in new liquidity. However, internal whispers suggest the SEC's price for this approval was a cleaner index, one stripped of assets that the agency still views through a legacy lens of uncertainty. Furthermore, Cardano, with its uncompromising commitment to decentralization and community governance, became the primary target for this regulatory sacrifice. This shadow requirement theory is supported by the timing of the SEC's delay on the GDLC options until April 2026. By removing ADA in January, Grayscale effectively, cleans the fund ahead of the next regulatory review. This is the cost of Wall Street integration, the systemic execution of protocols that cannot be easily pressured or cooled by the central authority. Cardano's Ouroboros Laos upgrade aims for 1,000 transactions per second, but no amount of speed can outrun a regulator who prefers centralized control. Grayscale is playing the long game. By dropping ADA in January, they've essentially cleaned the portfolio to ensure a friction-free approval for GDLC option trading this April. The irony is that while the SEC's shadow falls over the spot markets, the CME's future launch proceeds, highlighting a massive disconnect within the US government itself. This suggests that the purge isn't about protecting investors, it's about protecting the gatekeepers. But to understand why Cardano was the one chosen for this chopping block, we have to look at the narrative the bears have been feeding the market for many years. So to understand the institutional exit, we must first address the bear case with clinical precision. Critics point to the fact that during the 2025 market cycle, Cardano's price action was, categorized as, a grueling 60% decline, often trading below its major moving average. While the broader market looked for explosive decentralized finance growth, also known as DeFi, Cardano's total value locked TVL struggled to keep pace with the hyper-liquid ecosystems of Solana and Ethereum, for example. Furthermore, from a purely extractive financial perspective, the asset appeared to be underperforming the very large cap criteria Grayscale claims to prize. The institutional bears call this a utility gap, but I call it a safety margin. While Solana and BNB chase high velocity retail growth, Cardano is busy building the only high assurance foundation capable of supporting sovereign-grade infrastructure. The Ghost Chain label has been weaponized by those who view the network's slow peer-reviewed approach as a liability in high-speed markets like we're in. This narrative suggests that while Cardano focuses on academic rigor and decentralization, it missed the boat on the $20 billion real-world asset RWA tokenization boom. However, this perspective ignores the 17,000 Plutus smart contracts already deployed and the 15.7% surge in DeFi transaction volume recorded in late 2025. The bears see the lack of hype, and the builders see the hardening of the infrastructure. Cryptocurrencies, including ADA, are high-risk assets subject to extreme volatility. The institutional removal discussed here today is part of an ongoing shift, and I am not giving financial advice in today's video. I'm not a financial advisor. Investors must weigh the technical roadmap against the very real risks of technical delays or regulatory failure. Treat this video purely as entertainment purposes only. Do your own research before making any investment decisions. If you invest in crypto, you do risk losing all of your money. Now, despite the bearish price control, a strange signal emerged in January 2026. While retail was fearful, whales accumulated over 120 million ADA. This accumulation suggests that smart money isn't exiting, it's repositioning. The ghost chain narrative is being used as justification for a predetermined institutional exit, even as the network reclaims its 10th place by market cap from Bitcoin Cash. We are going to see, it fluctuating between 11th and 10th, don't get me wrong. While the Fear and Greed Index is stuck at 11, Cardano whales are quietly ignoring the noise, scooping up 120 million ADA in January alone to position themselves for the next leg up. But if the chain isn't dead, I hear you ask, and the whales are buying, why did the gatekeepers at Grayscale really leave? The answer lies not in what Cardano is doing today, but in how it is funding its own future, independently of Wall Street's permission. While institutional funds were cutting ties, the Cardano community was building a fortress. In late 2025, a historical milestone was reached: the approval of a 70 million ADA infrastructure bid, endorsed by over 60% of decentralized representatives, also known as DREPs. This wasn't just a budget request, it was a declaration of financial independence. By securing these funds from its own multi-billion-dollar treasury, Cardano is now self-funding the very tier 1 features, stablecoins, and institutional bridges that Grayscale claimed were missing. While other chains wait for VCs to fund their growth, Cardano is using its own treasury to deploy 70 million ADA into the missing middle of the infrastructure, making the network plug and play for tier 1 institutions. This shift marks the transition from the Voltaire era of governments into the high-functioning digital trust infrastructure. Furthermore, the network is no longer waiting for a green light from Wall Street gatekeepers. It's building the rails to bypass them entirely. The approval of this bid was the fastest treasury action in the protocol's history, signaling a community that has moved past theoretical research and into aggressive market execution. The infrastructure bid specifically targets the onboarding of institutional-grade stablecoins, including the imminent arrival of USDCX and the integration of Pyth oracles. This is a direct strike at the liquidity argument used by index providers to justify their exit. If Cardano can successfully integrate these tools using its own capital, the excuse for institutional exclusion evaporates. You're looking at the deaf bureaucracy. Traditional finance moves at the speed of paper. Cardano moves at the speed of code. 6 days to ratify a leader. that is what true governance velocity looks like. However, the real power of this resilience isn't in the money, it's in the resilience of the governance itself. With the expansion of the Constitutional Committee and the leadership of Intersect MBO, the protocol has established a multi-layered shield against central points of failure. As we move into the next chapter, we'll see how this integrity economy is being exported to the partner chain that even Google Cloud couldn't ignore. While Grayscale remains fixated on the legacy spot market, the real institutional bridge is being built in the shadows. That is the Midnight Network, IOG's 4th generation partner chain. This represents the final pivot towards what I would call compliant privacy. It's a must-have, not a nice-to-have. Unlike the total transparency of public ledgers that has terrorized and terrified risk-averse enterprise, Midnight Network allows for a dual-state architecture, private shielded transactions that still satisfy the world's most strict smart compliance standards. Think of night as the battery and dust as the charge. You hold the battery to store value, while the charge it generates lets you power private transactions without ever depleting your principal. The momentum behind this shift is no longer theoretical. By early 2026, Midnight has secured partnerships that dwarf the reach of a single fund manager. Google Cloud is now a primary infrastructure partner, providing the confidential compute power necessary for intense cryptographic operations at scale. This means that while Cardano is being purged from one of the institutional index, its core technology is being integrated into global cloud infrastructure. Furthermore, the exit by Grayscale is a trailing indicator. The leading indicator is the massive migration of privacy businesses logic onto the Midnight rail. So please take a moment to answer this question in the comments down below. If Cardano is supposedly a ghost chain, why has Google Cloud decided to sign on to secure and scale its privacy-focused partner network? So in my opinion, the narrative of institutionalization is being rewritten by tokens that have actual real-world utility. Midnight's governance token Night automatically generates dust, a shielded resource used to pay for private smart contracts. This model allows developers to self-fund applications, effectively making Web3 interactions free at the point of use for billions of people. This is the real target for smart money, an economy that operates at the speed of the internet while maintaining the privacy of a Swiss bank. From the cloud to the stars to the bank, Midnight's 2026 alliance proves that real-world privacy requires an end-to-end ecosystem, not just a standalone blockchain. This is the ultimate redirection. While the public watches the price of ADA on Grayscale charts, the builders are watching the Night distribution and launching of privacy-preserving AI agents on Telegram's billion-plus users. To track these movements before they hit the headlines, the cheeky crypto Discord and cheek stake pool remain the primary filters of the on-chain truth. But as the purge reaches its final stage, we must confront the most dangerous signal of them all, the liquidity trap. The rebalancing act of early 2026 isn't just a technical adjustment, it's the final act of the institutional purge. By removing Cardano from this index, Grayscale has completed the liquidity trap. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy where the removal of an asset from a major fund leads to the perception of a decline in institutional interest, which in turn is used to justify its continued exclusion. However, the data reveals a different reality. While the public large cap narrative was being stripped away, Cardano reclaimed its market cap position of 10th on February 4th, 2026, which signals that the network's resilience is powered by the community that refuses to be purged. Obviously, we're going to see it back at 11th and possibly back at 10th, and there's going to be a bit of back and forth, but it is a positive sign. We're witnessing a classic decoupling. Fund managers are selling the prophecy of decline, while 15.7% quarterly DeFi growth and steady whale accumulation proves the network's actual utility is much higher than ever. The true story of the purge is that Cardano has moved from being a developer-focused project to a sovereign financial infrastructure layer. With the launch of the CME futures on February 9th, 2026, the gatekeepers are no longer in control of the entry points. Hedge funds and institutional desks now have a direct regulated path to the asset that bypasses the methodology of passive index funds. Furthermore, the Grayscale exit isn't the end of Cardano's institutional journey, it's the beginning of its independence from the corporate digital asset managers who seek to control the integrity economy. As we look towards the remainder of 2026, the success of the Cardano network will be measured by the execution of the Ouroboros Laos upgrade and the launch of the Midnight mainnet. These aren't just technical milestones, they are the tools required to scale a decentralized economy to 1,000 transactions per second. The inside job here of the rebalancing attempt to signal a retreat. But we need to be honest, the 120 million ADA accumulated by whales in January suggests that the most sophisticated players in the market are preparing for a breakout. With the CME futures launch providing an on-ramp, the 70 million ADA bid building the infrastructure and the Laos providing the speed, Cardano is officially entering its post-purge era of unstoppable independence. So the purge is over. The institutionalization of Cardano ADA is not something that happens to the network through a fund manager. It's something the network is building for itself. For those who want to follow the on-chain truth, the signal is clear. When the gatekeeper closes the door, it's because they're afraid of what's happening inside. To stay ahead of the next structural shift, use the code down below to join the Cheeky School to get 50% off. Join us in the free educational Discord so you can have more meaningful conversations with us. Don't forget to stake your Cardano ADA to the Cheeky Crypto stake pool Cheek. Details are down below in the description of today's video. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.